We are 2 rounds and 4 races into the championship, and so far we've had chaos in every single race. Hello everybody, welcome back to the BMW M2 Cup Thursdays. I'm Tim Peck, joined today by Jesse of the commentary and Ryan Morse on the broadcast. Jesse, welcome back to Thursdays.
It's just like coming home, Tim. It really is. It's strange to have Ryan Mawson here. It's not strange to have Ryan Mawson beside me. It is, however, strange to have him here on a Thursday. For me, though, it is exactly like putting on an old pair of shoes or a glove. Tim, it's great to be back. And of course, now getting into the meat of the season, rounds 5 and 6 today. And, well, there's no other way to put it. It's Spa.
Yeah, I'd say that is probably the best way to put it. It is Spa, and it's going to be interesting as well. These BMW M2 Cup cars, if there's anything we've learned from them, it's that they are even more chaotic than the GT4s, but they are also much, much slower. So, I mean, I've been doing some of the math before this race, Jesse, and, well, you'll be very proud to know that we're going to get 3 laps of qualifying today and about 8 laps in race 1. So everyone's got to make sure every single lap counts, and well, I can't wait to find out who comes on top. Of course, the championship is very, very close at the moment. We'll go to the exact standings after qualifying. But until then, Jesse, all I can tell you is that there are some very, very close fights in the standings right now.
Yeah, it's very close fights in the standings, Tim. It's also going to be very close in qualifying. These cars are not what you would call gutless, but they are going to be very close indeed. My question is just how many of them we will end within 1 second of each other. Right now in practice, we have about 10. I think it'll be a little closer in qualifying, as some drivers have different agendas in practice, you will know well. Some are trying to finish up their qualifying strategy. Some are working on their longer race strategy. So you never can put too much stock into practice, but all things considered, it's going to be a very quick qualifying. And like you said, no room for mistakes.
No, you've got 3 laps. You need to make sure that you make every single one of those count, especially if you want to put the best time in. And watching the practice here, Jesse, the one thing I have noticed is in Sector 3, very, very easy to go wide coming out one of those corners and validate your lap. And I imagine that's why we see a lot of people not quite having the best times they may be showing in qualifying yet. It's because, I mean, I've watched Harleman for one. I think I've watched him do about 20 laps. About 7 of them have been valid, Jesse. And I think that is going to be the key in qualifying today, is just make sure you don't invalidate your lap, especially not in that final sector. Even if it means lifting off the throttle slightly, it's worth it just to get a time on the board.
You know how many times we come to Spa and I hear a driver say, well, I could have done this time, but they invalidated 3 to 4 to maybe even 5 laps in a row trying to set that time. Coulda, woulda, shoulda does not improve your starting position. With this many cars, qualifying is paramount. You have to set a lap. Even if it's not peak performance, you have to set a lap. Then after you have that banker lap, then go for it. But there will be somebody today, mark my words, very prolific, that will not get a lap in.
Well, that was the case last week. Robin Schaefer, of course, didn't manage to get in a good lap during their qualifying session. They did get a banker lap, but I'm not sure it was much better than that. I think they're about 4 seconds off the pace and found themselves in both races having to fight their way through the field. And that's the other thing, Jesse, is qualifying determines the grid for both races here, both the 20-minute sprint and the 40-minute feature race afterwards. That is worth a double point. So that is why you need to make sure you get as good a qualifying time as possible, because where you start is where you're going to start for both races, and you don't want to be climbing twice at Spa. You want to be at the front leading the pack.
Yeah, you certainly do. Couldn't said it better myself. Traffic is going to be a nightmare. These cars are probably going to bang fender to fender in the race, and you don't even want to think about what our Rouge Radion and the Kimmel Straight are going to look like on lap 1, do you, right now? So best bet is just to go as quick as humanly possible. And with practice coming to an end, I'll ask you, Tim Peck, who do you like today? Heilman and Verstappen have been trading the lead in practice back and forth. Look like the tail of the top of the two, and then you can't really look too much past Ripper and Schaefer either.
Well, Heilmann's been someone who's sort of been lurking every single race so far, and today at Spa through practice, they've just been setting faster time after faster time. Now, I think the key for them is, as I was saying earlier, just need to keep it on the track and make sure that they don't invalidate their time, because that is something I've seen them do a lot. Verstappen, though, Verstappen's come back after signing out for a round, and they look very, very fast in themselves as well. So I'd give it to either of those today. I think we're going to see a scrap out at the front between Verstappen and Heilmann here.
Well, here we go. Qualifying, like Tim said, this is the only one you got. You got 2 races, a sprint and a feature race coming up, but this is the qualifying that sets the grid for both of those races, not 2 qualifying sessions. This is super important, and look at this. So many cars streaking out on the racetrack, many of them weaving about, trying to get temperature into the tires. Some cars flashing other cars like Bart Macha there, letting the car in front of them know, hey, I see you're weaving, I want to get through. And this is about, this looks like the M4.
Well, you want, I'd say in terms of weaving, Jesse, you don't really want to be stuck behind someone that's weaving, but we see this every single week at the moment. It's just a massive pile up coming out of the pits. Honestly, I don't blame them. You don't have a lot of lap times. You want to make sure you're crossing the line at that optimal point in time. You basically want the space that you want. And actually, you saw there 2 cars going neck and neck through with each other. This is Boardman, I believe, and I'm not sure who they are fighting, but one of them is going to have to try and come out on top here, or they're going to have to sacrifice position. It looks like Boardman might have just managed to push their way through here, but that is some fighting, Jesse, on the outlap in the qualifying session here. So Boardman clearly just wants open air and a good run. You can't blame them. I think it's going to come down to that. The thing is, we've talked about it so far, Jesse. If you invalidate your lap on your own terms by going too wide, that's one thing. If someone in front of you has an instant that slows you down, I mean, you always feel bad if you hold someone up anyway, but with only 3 laps to get the perfect lap in, if someone holds you up, that's going to hurt.
Yeah, I found that very interesting. Boardman, the Grease Weasel Racing 69, wanted to get through. That's the 46 who they were passing. 46 had no intention of letting them through. It certainly didn't pull over, and now is continuing to ride into the slipstream there. I thought that was very interesting that those 2 cars were very close together. Matter of fact, I believe that's Les Stevenson in the 46, and look at this, side by side through the final turn. You don't want to do that. You do that for 1 turn, just 1 turn, and it will completely ruin your qualifying lap.
Well, I think now both of these drivers are probably counting on their next 2 laps to be actually quick. This will literally just be a banker lap now, see if you can get a decent time, but with exits like that, I don't think either of them are going to be too happy with the time that comes out of this. But we're riding on board now. I believe we're riding on board with Boardman here, going through for their first flying lap. We'll see how they can do it. Going through Eau Rouge, of course, it's just flat out in these cars. They don't have enough speed really to go too wide on either way here. But one thing I was talking about to Mawson actually, Jesse, is just because they can flat out Eau Rouge does not mean it's safe by any means. One thing that me and Miguel constantly talk about in the other races is just how hard it is to catch on these cars if you lose the grip. So that is something a lot of drivers are going to have to be careful of today as well, is when they're riding the curbs, don't ride them too much, because if you lose the rear end of this car, well, it's going to be in front of you before you know it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It certainly is. And we saw several cars invalidate into practice as well. And you talked about how it happened last week. A couple of cars did not get a qualifying lap in. There's been a rash of that here at Spa, particularly not in the touring car, but just in general. I've seen Verstappen, I think, struggle in qualifying, and there was another car, I can't recall who that was, that was racing for a championship and nearly bottled qualifying last season. I can't think of the driver's name for the life of me, but it is a frightening undertaking, certainly, but you can't let that deter you. Certainly get a banker lap in, get something on the board to fall back on, but even still, you got to get a move on. And my questions turn to just how quick will the first laps be. I think we'll be a little bit off of the ultimate time. Might be a little meat left on the bone to pick up in the subsequent couple of laps.
Yeah, think so too, but we keep saying, Jesse, it's going to come down to banker laps, I think, for a lot of these drivers. When there's 41 drivers on the grid, it's better to start 20th than 41st, so I think it's just safe getting that good banker lap and then really push it to the limit. Well, we're about to see Boardman come across the line here. I can't help but notice, Jesse, there is nobody in their rear view mirror there, so it looks like Les might have just fallen off during that lap, but Boardman's going to come across the line. That's a lap of a 240.420, currently going to hold them in provisional pole as some more drivers come across the line now. But I've got to say, Jesse, a 240, that's a pretty solid start, although Verstappen has just come in with a 239 to knock it right out of the park.
Yeah, I was going to say, I felt like a 239 was right where you would like to be at the end of lap number 1 for a timed lap, and Verstappen came right in there. Boardman left a little bit on the bone, like I said, and Verstappen and Heilmann coming in and taking the scraps. A 39.6 for Verstappen and just inside a 39 for Heilmann, as those two cars were the top two until Ripper comes along, a 39.5 dead. That's 1.5 tenths quicker than Verstappen's time and takes Ripper all the way to the top of the board. Ripper, Verstappen, Heilmann, Boardman is your top 5.
Ripper is someone who I would like to talk about quite a lot there. Schaefer sets the new provisional pole time of 2:39.172. So Schaefer, someone who showed up quite a lot at Suzuka, is now back in the game on pole. But Ripper is someone who I'd like to talk to you quite a lot about today, Jesse, because I mean, race 1 they were, I'd say, a solid midfield fighter, and then last week at Bathurst they just appeared out of nowhere and seemed to dominate in race 1 and race 2 as well. So Ripper is definitely someone you cannot count out of the championship at the moment. They're currently second, and Martin Lawrence will slot themselves into that 3rd place spot for now. And yeah, it's looking like you're right. 2:39.1 is going to be the time to beat, I think. I think Schaefer is very, very lucky to have that as a first lap there, and it's a great job by him to get a time that good coming straight out of the pits.
It sure was. One car into, I suspect that is turn 4 and 5, has had an issue, and now an issue in the hairpin coming back down the hill right before No Name, and that will all but end their qualifying. We meant it when we said they were only going to get a lap or two, and they will have no mulligans here. They will have to start wherever they start, at the mercy of everybody else still at a timed lap. This was one of the cars that I was talking about. Dvorak, I believe, did spin the car around. Now, whether they invalidated or not, that was a massive time loss for absolute certain. Christoph Verstappen set the provisional pole lap for a few short moments before Ripper, Schaefer, and Lawrence went back to the top. Following right behind a car, is that good drafting, or has that held up the 747? We'll find out just briefly. It is an improvement, a decent one at that. A 39.487 for Verstappen puts them second.
Well, I believe Heilmann is... Oh no, they've actually, as soon as I've said that, have just lost quite a lot of time. Oh no, it's because they came across the line. Heilmann had a huge improvement there on their lap. That's going to put them into 5th place. They were, I think, 4 tenths up on their lap there, Jesse. Now, you were talking about how many people would be within a second of each other. Currently, it's only the top 7 that have managed to slot into that 1 second of each other. But there is still time left in this qualifying session, and I did see a couple of people that lap did invalidate it, going a little bit too wide. Now, one thing that is worth noting, Jesse, is for pretty much every driver on the grid right now, bar the ones that are just about to cross the line, this is their final lap in qualifying. They will not make it to the line before the time hits 0. So for those of them that are currently trying to go around the track, for the cars that have now just yellow flagged themselves, this was their last lap. This is the one they need to make sure counts here.
One of those cars was Scholl's. They're down in 19th place. I worry about how far they might fall down. Rob Franken also out of qualifying. John Arazer also in the pit lane. Tom Berg inside the top 10 and 9th, also not able to take an additional lap. Martin Lawrence got to the line. They'll have this lap. This will be their last lap of qualifying. They are P4 currently with that lap they just did, looking for a little bit more. A couple of more positions, a 10th and a half might be enough to put them on the front row of the grid. We'll have to see. Benjamin Heilman in the 796 will come to a stop, as it were.
Oh no.
And that will be the end of their qualifying run. Don't know if they were just massively down on their time or invalidated at some point, and they have returned to the pit lane.
Well, here's Ripper. Last lap, Ripper was up 3.5 tenths on their time. That would have put them on pole. They're currently up another 3 tenths on their time, so they're looking for that lap. Now, if you're wondering what happened to their last lap, they invalidated it in the final sector. We'll be hoping that they do not do the same here, although there is a car sitting on the outside of this corner, has managed to clear itself before Ripper comes through, but Ripper here needs to make sure that not only they keep this lap valid, but they carry as much time through as possible. They are fighting to put themselves on that pole position. Currently, that will be enough to get themselves across Verstappen, who didn't manage to get in that final lap, Jesse. They returned to the pits, so Verstappen's got to hope that the time that they've set is going to stick here. 2:39.4. I'd say it's likely to hold a fair few positions, but both Ripper and Lawrence are currently improving on their time here as they're coming up to the finish line. So Verstappen might be about to get kicked out of the top three. We'll see if Ripper can hold it together through the final 2 corners. And it looks like it's a good exit, although they did actually there just hit the inside curb a little bit too much. That's going to knock all the time off. And Ripper, well, they're going to be one of those people earlier, Jesse, that is a shoulda, woulda, coulda. That was going to be pole position. They were 4 tenths up on their time, and now it was not even enough improvement to get through Verstappen ahead.
It wasn't, but it was still an improvement on the stopwatch, and that will be a shot in the arm for Ripper, because even starting third, that's well enough up the grid that they will have a shot to win this race. If Ripper can replicate that in the race, it might be just good enough. Martin Lawrence is one of the last cars to get through. They're still on a quick lap. We'll just see how much they gain. A little over 4 tenths will give them the pole position. Anything over a tenth will get them maybe to second place, and that's exactly what happens. A 39.357 for Martin Lawrence puts them P2 on the grid, and I think that was Tom Bryant going ahead and driving down the pit lane. The final few cars coming across the line, finishing up their session. This is the last car on the field. That was the 51. This is Im Young. Hey, I know them. The 37 who just finished up the Diamond Drive Cup a night ago, and everybody has finished qualifying, and what a spirited qualifying that was. Lawrence able to slot into the front row at the final moments.
Well, we'll see where everyone lines up on the grid in a minute. For now, though, Jesse, it is time to go through the standings of the championship. We're going to see exactly where everyone is placing so far in this championship. I've got to say, having looked at it beforehand, these are some very close fights here. Wolf Pachushka currently in first place is 85 points, and 1 point behind is Marco Ripper currently there in second place. Robin Schaefer in third has 74 points, and Martin Lawrence just behind them has 73. So they're also 1 point behind, and they are starting in first and second stage. So they've got a lot of fights to have on track here. Pedro Marks there in fifth currently, and Svensson will line up behind him in sixth. Heilman 1 point behind Svensson is in seventh at the moment. Ertan is currently in eighth. Klasiad is in ninth, and Rosu will round out the top 10 with 37 points.
That is the first pro standings there. Well, very close back here as well, Tim.
Yeah, well, Vigstu is just 1 point behind Klasiad in 11th place currently. Verstappen is in 12th. Vorak is in 13th. They are 1 point ahead of Jordan Daly. So there's a lot of 1 point gaps here today, Jesse. Nordvisk is in 15th with 13 points. They're ahead of Thornberg and Boardman, tied on 8 points for 16th place. Stevenson is in 18th place right now with 0 points, and Schumacher has yet to score points so far.
Silver Championship is going to be a lot of the same story. A little bit of breathing room for Harley Chamberlain up front with 89 points. Benjamin Schumann, second place, 76 points. And Valentin Mallet, 65 points in third place. Nico Kuzma with 61. And the top five rounded out by Ryan Mawson on 60. He's going to fall through the field. Why? Because Ryan Mawson has selflessly removed himself from the championship this week and next week so that we can bring you live action from the BMW Touring Car Championship uninterrupted this season. He decided to do that to make sure that the races were broadcasted. They wouldn't be otherwise, and we definitely appreciate his sacrifice. Of course, he's won a race already this season. Aaron Jackson in sixth place with 51 points. Max Simons with 49. Conrad Jackson, 44. Bart Machon, 43. Peter Roche, 42. Rounds out your top 10. Back half of the silver class, Kyle Tate with 41 points. Jonna Razor, 18. Martin Vanderswan with 16. Horn with 13, tied with Ladke. And Rob Franken in 16th place with 11 points. Tom Watts on 8. And Alexander Bordai hasn't scored points yet, but is in the field tonight.
And here's how things are in AM at the moment. John Schultz is currently in first place. They've got 97 points, which is a good 14-point buffer to Tom Bryant, who is in second. Jan Yo will be in third place, and Ryan Gill currently in fourth place with 71 points. Phil Roberts is in fifth. They are 10 points ahead of Byron behind, who's in sixth place, who is 2 points ahead of Atta, rounding out seventh. Vondra currently in eighth. Bettiatti is in ninth place, and Miller will round out the top 10 with 31 points. Mike Redford is also on 31 points at the moment. They're in 10th place. Daniel Grove is in 12th. They've got 23 points. Brokemar is in 13th. Aaron Fox is in 14th with 14 points. And Young and Stevenson don't have any points but are racing today. And I believe everyone else, Jesse, has signed out of the championship so far.
Well, very close standings, and keep in mind there's 2 races as there are all season, 1 sprint and 1 in 40-minute race. I almost called it an endurance race. It's not that. We call it a feature around here. Well, you get half points for the sprint race. You get full points, or depending on your disposition in life, you'd call it bonus points for winning the longer of the 2 races. But either way, a lot of points on the table, so don't be worried about those gaps. I think some of those gaps are simply because if you have one bad race, you drop 30 to 40 points. By doing so, it creates a gap. In my professional opinion and my observation over the years, that will, as we get further into the season, that will stabilize. Almost nobody, unless your name's an Rose, has perfect seasons. It just does not happen. So everybody will have some form of drama in the season, but our pro battle, absolutely ridiculously close. There's a 10-point gap between second and third, Tim, but realistically, that's 4 positions.
Well, I mean, going into Bathurst last round, the gap between first and second was about 10 points, and, well, the person that was holding first is currently down in third place. That's Robin Schaefer, of course. Did not have a very good week last week, but this week, though, Jesse, looking very good. Robin Schaefer will start on pole for today's race. Martin Lawrence will be starting in second, and Verstappen will round out the top 3. In silver, Bart Matcher, they're going to be rounding out, well, they'll be in first place. They'll be on provisional pole. Simons, never quite managed to clear that one up, is currently in second, and Borodai will start in third. Janyo will lead the AM pack, and Phil Roberts and Schultz will be second and third. But I've got to say, Jesse, if you're Janyo right now, you have 6 cars between you and your nearest competitor. For the start, you are just looking to take things easy here and try and keep as many of those cars as a buffer to your competitor as possible.
I always like starting somewhere near the front, or even if I'm not starting in the front, I love knowing that I outqualified my rival, whoever I'm trying to beat. I love doing that because it gives me peace of mind. And whoever is trying to chase me down in a points championship situation, they have all the pressure in the world. I have no pressure because I've done my job, my first job, qualifying well, or at least better than who I'm racing, and it's all on them. So like you said, couldn't have said it better myself. Take it easy, be very smart. In a field this size, things can and will go wrong in an absolute hurry. You don't need to be a part of that, And right now, there's a couple of cars that are sitting pretty to start this race. This is one of them. Had that really great qualifying run at the end. Let's see who can do the most damage today. And don't forget about Ripper. Ripper, for our money, was going to put that car on pole. Didn't quite get the lap in. It's going to be interesting to see how that all shakes out in this sprint race.
It is, and the sprint race will be starting here shortly. We've just got 2 more corners to go on what feels like it has been the longest outlap in the history of outlaps here at Spa today. But going up into the first corner, Lawrence is going to hope to have a good run on Schaefer here. We've already seen this battle a couple of times in the championship so far, and they are currently fighting for that 3rd place spot. We're about to set off here. We'll see whether one of them can get the better run up going into the first corner here. Actually, this is
Spa. A lot of cars, Tim. That's a lot of cars.
It's a lot of cars. I realise it's Spa. We've got to get to the next straight before we actually start the run down into Turn 1, which will be Eau Rouge for today. But Jesse, there are so many cars on the track. I just hope that all of them can give each other enough space. We have had some absolutely brilliant fighting so far. Where's Martin Lawrence gone? It looks like they just disappeared off the corner there. But we will be about to start this race any second now. It's a 20-minute sprint. It is worth half the points of race 2, but it still matters. You want to finish as high as possible here. Will not determine though where you start in race 2. It is its own race here. We're about to cross the line. We'll see who's going to have the better exit. Will it be Lawrence? It looks like Lawrence has a good start here, as actually the lights have already gone, and we're going to go neck and neck through Eau Rouge into Turn 1 here, Jesse. Schaefer going to push Lawrence to the side and continue with a fairly decent gap to begin with. There's some battling going on behind us. Verstappen looks like they're under pressure from Ripper. Ripper might have already fought their way through, actually, but for the most part, Jesse, I don't want to jinx it. All cars are currently still on track, albeit in a huge clump behind the leader.
I don't get to say this very often because I don't comment on oval racing, but they're 3 wide in the middle of the pack. One gets spit out to the inside. There's still 3 wide around the right-hander. They're still going to be 3 wide. How are they making it? A car on the inside, cutting it very, very close there. They settle it. They get 2 wide. A couple of cars off into the background, but otherwise, a very nice start for almost everybody. I don't know how halfway down the straight one of the cars got spun, but that's incredible stuff, folks. We sell you a seat, but you only need the edge.
Well, that is one start, and it is certainly not over yet. We're currently watching Daly fight through the field as they try and continue to find a position. A racer holding off Van der Zwaan from behind, trying to make sure they don't have any room to try and find a way through. A racer going to stick to the middle of the track here as Chamberlain ahead goes a little bit wide through this set of corners. They're going to need to try and get this a bit tighter, otherwise they may end up picking a warning or two, which you do not want to pick up this early on, especially not at Spa. But a racer managing to hold it right in the middle of the track, coming through all these corners, is going to continue to hold on to that 14th place. But Boardman as well, we're going to cut to them quickly and see as they cut. They've all managed to sort themselves out, Jesse. They're all in single file now and not too much fighting going on. But I tell you what, I am so impressed that we only had the one accident, and I'm very surprised it happened on the straight of all places.
Yeah, I'm super surprised. I mean, I saw them 3 wide. As we would say in America when we talk about oval racing, we call that a wad. They were in a wad, and I thought for sure one of them was going to get spat out, and they did, but it wasn't one of the cars I thought it was going to be. It happened to be right behind the big pack of cars. So rather unfortunate for, I believe that's the 2 car. That was the big loser in all of that, and that's unfortunate, but they're still in the race. They haven't towed, so the damage must not be too awful terrible, as Claudia trying to get a leg up on Zwaan here in the 112, looking down the inside, and will just about get that done. Oh, look at the dive! Do you see the dive? Is that Dvorak, I wonder, behind, trying to make that move as well? It is Dvorak! What an opportunistic move into Turn 1!
Well, they saw the opportunity open up there. The gap just was big enough to stick another car in, and Dvorak very late on the brakes managed to put himself right there, basically ruining Zwaan's exit, but it will be enough to put them up into, I believe that will be 16th place for them, as it looks like we're about to have another fight yet again on the straight here. Hopefully this time it doesn't end in tears. Getting very, very close to each other, those cars were, but manages just about to stay out of trouble as Roberts, looking for a way to fight through the field right now, has a clump of 4 cars ahead of them and just no opportunities as of yet, but with a bit of chaos coming up through the corner here will be able to pick off drivers one by one. I believe they've just got up behind.
Oh,
They're going to take someone else with them there. There are a couple of cars facing the wrong way. Roberts and Yo, though, managed to just about navigate their way through that corner.
I wonder if that was getting on the curb that led to that spin, or that was contact as they all Constantina back together. Let's see. No, that was definitely contact between the 48 there. Just an absolute passenger and bystander there gets tagged himself and somehow ends up the big loser in all of that, as Rob Franken's able to sort of drive away from it. The other car not so lucky. More incidents in the hairpin at the top of the hill as well. One car has towed back to the pit lane. I say one car, several cars in the pit lane now, licking their wounds after the lap 1 and beginning of lap 2 incidents. No such drama for Robin Schaefer in the 293, leading the field by just about a second over Martin Lawrence. Verstappen and Ripper, no movement there. Heilman still completing the top 5. Marquez in the 128's in 6th place, and you get the first silver car. Barmacha leading. Oh, and Mike
Where
Redford.
are they going?
Away from the other cars is what I suspect. Oh no! They rejoin and contact there with the cars. They rejoin. They go hard into the wall. Oh my goodness! Did Redford just not see that other car when they merged? Let's take another look at this.
Did we report this to the police? Did we just witness a murder here, Jesse?
I think the police were already notified.
Oh.
Now what happens here? Redford just goes off, as touring cars will do, and then there's the rejoin, and just, oh my goodness, just must not see or know there's another car there. But my question is, how could you have not?
I think, obviously Redford's rejoining the track, so they have a slightly different line to whoever they spun out there, but I think what just happened was, I think Redford just assumed that they'd be going the similar sort of directions to them, sort of leading the car to the right, and they just didn't take into account the fact that they were rejoining the track, so obviously they weren't going in a straight line. And I just think it was one of those situations where one car was probably trying to push it to the limit, going as wide as possible, and Redford just so happened to be there and not quite clued in onto where they were. But Redford will not be happy about that at all. I think they'll probably feel quite bad about what's just unfolded there, and well, I think the stewards as well will definitely be having a look at that one. Vorak making a challenge on Classiad ahead, looked for the inside for a second there, not quite managing to get side by side though with the number 30. He's going to have to tuck back for now, but Vorak has looked very, very feisty at the beginning of this race, Jesse, and I'd say out of all of the driving we've seen so far, Vorak has definitely been the one trying to force these moves, still looking for a way through Classiad, but that number 30 is just planting itself in the middle of every corner, and I don't know where Vorak's going to go. I think it's going to have to be Ascend if they want to try and do something, and well, if you've watched the start of this race, Ascend might not be the thing on your mind right now. Probably just going to try and wait for Classiad to make a mistake and capitalise off it later.
Don't look now in the mirror. Jordan Daly just waiting in the wings, hoping and cheering for Dvorak to make a move on Claudia so that Daly can get a piece of this action. That's kind of Jordan Daly's thing, is make a move if it's there, but you know, if it's not there, I'd rather somebody else make it for me. You don't have to tell Daly how to use a door, certainly, and I think that's what he's waiting for, is a door to be opened at least.
That is my favourite quote I think I've ever heard you say there. But we're going to continue to watch Vorak as they try and make a move on Classiad ahead. Will they be able to get something here as we go through this section of corners, which initially you'd think is flat out, Jesse, but you've got to get it right as Vorak looks towards the inside. Classiad went a little bit wide there. Vorak has probably picked up a warning as well for coming wide out of that corner. Looks towards the inside, coming into the final chicane here. It's almost going to be a little too late on the brakes, but manages to hold it together. But that gives Classiad a chance to put themselves back ahead before the start finish. All this time Daly's managed to close the gap as well. Will Daly now have a chance to go around the outside on turn 1? We're going to see here Daly is going to be a lot later on the brakes, I imagine, than Vorak here going into turn 1. They're neck and neck as Vorak continues to push Daly right out to the side of the track and will cut them off before they can get a good enough exit onto the straight. So a big battle happening here for 14th place, Jesse, and I tell you what, that was some great racing, but it goes to show going into that final chicane, you have to get it right. You do not have the luxury of getting that slightly wrong, because it just gives everyone else around you a huge advantage.
Well, it wasn't a door, it was a window, but I don't have to tell Daly how to open a window either. He certainly stuck his leg in, didn't he? He got a leg in there and thought, well, if you're not gonna pass him, maybe I'll get the spot on you. And it didn't come off. But also, I just want to say, between Dvorak and Kaladian, just excellent driving between the two of them. A lot of, I think, respect. Ooh, speaking of, Jan Yoen, was that Hladky who had contact? It certainly looked like it was, as one went shooting off the track, but they both rejoined without further incident. But back to Kaladian and Dvorak, yeah, Dvorak was absolutely going for it. Oh, no, bumper cars. There was a car backwards there. One spit out of the middle like a hot dog, spit out of a bun. Daly's through, but every single one of those cars got one form of damage, like they were playing Dodgems there.
Oh no, I saw that coming a mile away. There were 4 cars.
I didn't see it.
Oh, there were 4 cars basically nose to tail touching each other, going up into that hairpin there, and then I saw the yellow dot appear on the map ahead of them, and I was like, oh no, this is not going to go well. Of course, it was just a case of all of them trying to brake to avoid the person facing the wrong way, and Daly not being quick enough on the brakes will go into the rear of Dvorak there. Luckily, all 4 of them will remain on track for now. Vigstu, though, going for a move on Hladky ahead, not getting it done so far. Actually, this is Yo, not Hladky, but Vigstu trying to find a way through Yo here. Looked like they had it for a second, but Yo managing to hold steady coming into this final sector, and it's going to have good runoff as well. And that's the thing with these cars, Jesse, that not quite talked about just yet in this race, but we have talked about in basically every other round right now, is the good old famous Christian Stricker saying of, you need to keep momentum in these cars, because the second you lose momentum, Jesse, you lose all of your pace altogether, and it takes so long to re-accelerate these things that the key here, Jesse, just keep that momentum going, nail every corner, and make sure that you don't have to put your foot on that brake where you don't need to.
No, absolutely. I have to agree with Mr. Stricker on that one. It really is a case of momentum. Unlike in like a Formula car or even a GT4 or a GT3 car. Oh, a big sin by Hladky, but they're going to make it stick. They even take the apex properly, look. And what a nice positional change that was. Oh my goodness. I didn't think that was going to come off, but yet it did. Has provided a lane, given all the real estate on the inside, but didn't really need any of it. Kept it very nice and tidy there.
No, that was just amazing. I saw it happening, and I was like, oh no, this is for sure going to end badly, but just hit that apex absolutely perfectly and got the dive off, as someone there is off track there, is just going to slot back in behind Heilmann. Heilmann seems to have dropped off a little bit off the pace since the beginning of this race. I mean, someone that we were looking at for that pace this weekend, I thought Heilmann would be pushing a lot further towards the top right now, struggling to find that momentum coming through these corners here. Yo as well, looks like they've got caught off again coming through that first sector, is going to find themselves slotting back onto the track and dropping a position to Roberts there, who will now be leading the AM charge for first place. And I've got to ask Jesse, is this the AM curse that we've seen so much, which is if you're leading the AM, you've got that huge gap between you and the car behind, and that's when random problems, they just start to pop up every now and again, and you struggle for what seems like no apparent reason.
Well, if you're superstitious, I hate to say it, but it does feel like that is the case. But Bill Roberts looks like they're in control only just over Janio right now. Nice battle for the AM lead, and a nice fight here between 2 cars in different classes. Nordquist trying to make that pass stick, but being fended off at every pass. Sticks a nose onto the inside, might be forcing the 51 a little bit wide here to try and get that spot. They're side by side at the very least. Nordquist around the outside, going to run out of real estate here, but is not going to give up any sort of momentum by doing that. A little bit of a touch there between the two of them, the 51 not having any of it, and pulls back in front. What an excellent fight there. A little bit of a physical altercation as well, but no harm, no foul. And Redford is creeping into this picture. Remember, the contact earlier was all the way down in 30th place, now back inside the top 25 and looking for more now.
That is the momentum showcasing itself there. Nordqvist had not a great exit, picked up a lot of gravel, and that's given Redford and Simons here a chance to capitalise off it. Redford being forced to go a very long way around this final chicane, and Simons is going to push himself onto the inside and take the position straight off of Redford. They will now turn their attention to Nordqvist ahead, and Redford now has to worry about Stevenson from behind, who's going to have a great run as they come up into this first corner here, looking towards the inside of Redford. Not going to go for a dive though here, and will slot in behind and opt into just getting a good run into Eau Rouge here. But again, Jesse, it's that final chicane, and there's just so much overtaking potential there, but you have to get it right, and that is exactly what Simons did.
Yeah, he certainly did. That was an excellent job to get that done. And, well, Les Stevenson now trying to pass Redford, who is trying to pass the cars in front of him. Every single week we've seen this so far with just the very long trains. Bourdais down the inside of a Razor, and they just about get it sorted. Kaladian has caught up with this group. Daly, of course, is by Hladky after the contact earlier. Looking down to the inside, but almost gets into him, but thinks better of it at the last possible second. Kaladian has a lot of speed here, but I'm afraid he's going to have to let these two cars settle it amongst themselves before he gets involved. Bourdais down the inside. Eraser around the outside should be done and dusted. Maybe a little bit of contact there, and Bourdais gets P11 away. Kaladian trying to follow through and just about does. The Spanish driver on the outside now, pulling back up, and beside him is Eraser. Eraser not willing to give up that spot and only loses the one, though it certainly looked like for a moment it was going to go Kaladian's way, but it doesn't. But not giving up, looking to the outside still, knows that momentum, like you said, is so important. It doesn't really, it's not like a GT car where going around the outside slows you up too much. Going around the outside, especially if you have track limit warnings to give, can be tantamount to making a good pass.
Well, Kalatiel is absolutely putting this to their advantage right now. Razor had to spend so much of their momentum just trying to hold on to the position there. You can see that Kalatiel is all over the rear, and again a race has gone wide, and there goes the number 30 looking for a move around what's going to be the outside of the final chicane. Is managing to get ahead just beforehand, though it looks like they slightly overshot it there. Will hold it together though and force their way through Eraser, but now Eraser will have a good run into the first turn of Spa here. Will they be able to bite back and take that position? It looks like they're going to try and go for the outside, or they're going to not be able to find it as Cassiel closes that door before it's even fully open, slamming it shut on Eraser, and Eraser is going to have to wait before they're making that bite back move. Hladky though, great exit out of turn one, is trying to put the pressure on Jordan Daly behind. Daly though will manage to also get a good exit and hold on for now, but that is where a lot of the fighting has been going on. Ripper though is now under pressure from, I think this is Verstappen. Actually, is Ripper just taken the position from Verstappen, but now put them in that final podium position, managing to put themselves ahead just before the corner there. Verstappen not going to be happy with losing this position. He's going to try and buy back instantly. Found the inside on Ripper here. They're going to go neck and neck into the head, but it looks like they're almost going to touch, but Verstappen just hold it together. Will push Ripper to the outside and take back the position that they have just lost here, is back up into those podium points for the finish. Verstappen's going to fight back, but that is a fight, everybody, for third place here. Ripper just not being able to hold on to it for very long, but will again have a go biting back here on Verstappen. Going to try and get alongside, but not have the opportunity to yet. And Jesse Lee, what a fight we've just seen from those two. Verstappen only just managing to call that position back.
That was excellent stuff. Ripper just thought that they were going to drive away, but no, not going to happen. Verstappen doing everything they possibly can to get that spot back, knowing the track, knowing what corners are coming up, putting themselves in the right position, putting Ripper at a disadvantage, and that's how the position changed hands again. Speaking of being very close, the last couple of laps, Martin Lawrence has dropped off significantly, almost a second, 8/10 at least, from the leader, but before that they were nose to tail for quite a long period of time. We'll be curious to see if Lawrence can claw back any of that time and make this really close in the final couple of laps in this race. But until then, we show you John Eraser, who has had he's been going the wrong direction, if I'm completely honest, in the 699. Still holds on to third in class, not currently threatened by Gladkey, who is behind Daly right now, but certainly would like to keep Daly behind and keep that one-car buffer. Certainly, indeed. Hartley Chamberlain, that is, still working on Jan Yo. It's not a position in class, but position overall, and the final spot inside the top 20 for Harley Chamberlain if they could make this pass. But Jan Yo has a windscreen full of Phil Roberts and Rob Franken right now.
Well, here comes Marks. I believe they are trying to make a move on Heilmann. Heilmann, though, is going to hold it together as they come through Eau Rouge. Both cars going a little bit wide on the exit there, but for now we'll stay out of each other's way enough. Actually, I say that Heilmann is definitely in Mark's way right now, but managing to keep it clean between them. Mark tries to come alongside here into the next corner. Will Heilmann be able to hold off Marks? They've got the slight advantage. They're just ahead, but Marks will have the better run trying to go around the outside, but no, they will have to tuck in behind Heilmann for now. Heilmann, with a brilliant defense there, manages to keep the momentum going through the corner despite not having the optimal track position that they would have wanted in that situation. Jesse, this is the last lap here. We will not make it to the end of this lap before the 20 seconds up. So if Marks needs to get this move done, they need to get it done now. It has to be done this lap. Some people may be noticing that the number 2 car is currently trailing behind. That was Schultz, had an accident last lap and is just, I think, trying to make it back to the pits because they're going very, very slowly. Was Svensson and I think that was Vigstu having their own little battle here for 15th place. Svensson trying to find a way through, but currently not able to do so as Vigstu continues just to cut off every single corner, making sure Svensson can't get a good exit. And again, we're going to cut and see how Marks is doing, having the same situation with Heilmann and Jesse. This is what I think comes down to it. We talked about the momentum and how it affects it, as Marks is going to try and put it next to Heilmann for the next corner, not quite managed to do so. Heilmann again just managing to hold on, but has thrown the car completely off whack. Does not have the acceleration they want here. Has to hold off against Marks, as Marks is trying to find a way through the rear of Heilmann. Can't manage to do so far. The similar story for Ripper right now as they try and put themselves on the podium. Verstappen struggling to hold onto it through the final few corners here. Just about managing to hold off Ripper, but has to get through the final chicane. Ripper comes alongside Verstappen for this final chicane. Will they go for the send and try and get it around? It looks like they're going to do it neck and neck. Is that Lawrence holding them both up, or is that a blue flag? I think actually that might be a blue flag, Jesse. But I think Ripper actually might be going across the line with Verstappen here. Who was ahead? I think Verstappen held on to it by 100th of a second going across the line there. Schaefer, of course, will win this race. Lawrence in second. Verstappen by just 100th of a second, Jesse, will round out that podium in third place.
Absolutely incredible stuff. Marquez, by the way, did get 5th place from Heilmann. It was a virtual dead heat at the line, but slow motion will reveal that Pedro Marquez, did get that position on Heilmann right at the line. Ripper, what an excellent job. And look at this gaggle coming to the line. Lucas in the 51 will lead the parade. Simmons, Redford, Dvorak, and Van der Zwaan, Mollier, all of those cars coming to the line. Incredible stuff. And Schultz is going to be the loneliest driver on the planet. As you mentioned earlier, the damage very clearly visible there. Something happened to the 197 of Daly, by the way. They dropped out of their battle, which was up inside the top 20, somewhere around top 15. So something happened to the 197. Ryan Gill had issues early. Tom Bryant the same. The 942 and the 99 all having issues early in that race. Wow, what a race, and what a win that was by our winner in Pro.
Schaefer led from start to finish there and had a very, very good race. I think they'll be extremely happy with just how that's gone. I mean, the pace was pretty much unmatchable for the most part of it. Their best lap was a 2:39.1, which is actually faster than their qualifying lap, Jesse, so they're going to be very, very happy with how that race went. Lawrence, of course, will come in second place. They'll continue to put the pressure on their fight, and Verstappen will round out the podium. Down in silver, Bart will win the race. Borodai I believe, came second, and a racer came in third place, rounding out that podium. And Phil Roberts won in the AM split. Jan Yo came second, and Les Stevenson was in third place. So good racing for a lot of drivers out there. And again, a complete mix-up of who we're seeing coming off at the top here. Schaefer and Lawrence return to fighting form in the pro split, but they're not currently in the championship, so all of this will help them to close the gap to Ripper ahead of them. And I've got to say, Jesse, that was a very, very chaotic race there. I think there was a lot of instances where cars ran wide and sort of almost had trouble rejoining. And of course, not just talking about Redford's incident, but there are a couple of other cars that came on, and there was a lot of cars having to duck out of the way there. So I think going into race 2, if you're any of these drivers, what you've got to focus on here is just that momentum. And what I was going to say actually in the final few laps there is you can really see how the momentum affects the race. And the second you are knocked off that momentum, the second you mess up an exit, you really start to feel it, and you get a lot of pressure from the car behind. We saw it in several different fights that went on till the line there in race 1 today. And the other thing on that is, when it comes to defending, Jesse, I think the tactic here is just try and be as unpredictable as possible and hope that behind they mess up their momentum. And I think that's just how you defend here, is you just got to try and make it so that they don't get good exits. Screw whether they come out next to you or in front of you. Just make sure their exit is not as good as yours.
Seeing a couple of replays. That first replay was Pedro Marquez getting by Benjamin Heilman for 5th place at the line. This is the 747 and the very close fight that was with Ripper, the 666 there, and the lap car that was very close in contact there. I'm sure those two drivers, Ripper and Verstappen, will have some comments about the lap car getting involved in their fight, maybe affecting that. But all things considered, incredible replays as well from Ryan Mawson, showing us those two very close battles side by side for 3rd place, side by side for 5th place, coming to the line after 20 minutes. That's what you expect. And, you know, we saw the Robin Schaefer car, the 293, win that race, and they weren't really pressured by Martin Lawrence. Martin Lawrence was right behind them halfway through the race. They fell back, but they did sort of catch up. They were within a second at the line, but just not enough time. I wonder if that's a characteristic of Martin Lawrence's car in comparison to Schaefer, and maybe a 40-minute race, we'll see that battle reignite. Don't know. What I can tell you is the drivers are allowed to modify their setup in between the races without penalties. So basically they can make tweaks on their car, but I worry about stuff like that. If you're doing 2 equal races, 2 30-minute races, like we did last night for the Diamond Drive Cup, it's fine. But when you double the length of the race and you make changes to your car, I worry about doing that, because the unknown. You don't know. You know what your car will do in 20 minutes, but you don't know what it'll do in 40. Changing the car can be dangerous, or it could be a lifeline in this case. Either way, incredibly close racing. There certainly, though, will be a couple of drivers that have some questions for some of the others in the field.
Yeah, I think if it was me, I probably wouldn't be tweaking the setup too much between races, but of course some of these drivers know a lot better than I do and will have ideas of exactly what they want out of their car. A thing that they have to take into account for this race in particular is that these tyres will drop off towards the end. We've seen it at every single track so far. The tyres just don't last at all in these cars, especially because they have such little grip in general. You do burn them up very, very quickly here. So I think a lot of these cars, if they are going to make changes, it will be focused on that grip factor. Just take a minute to quickly mention our partners. We have Race Department, AK Informatica, Driver61, Fanatec, and SimRacing.gp. You can see their names lovely displayed at the bottom of your screen right now, and you can scroll down and look at the description for more information on them. And I will be giving you more information on each of our partners at the end of today's race. Well, we're getting ready for the next outlap, and I've got to say, Jesse, if you want to go grab a cup of tea, if you want to go to the toilet, hey, if you want a quick nap, I'd go do it now. Let's be real, you've got a good 5 minutes as soon as they start this outlap. It's a long, long outlap here at Spa.
Let's take the time to talk about some stuff, and I want to talk some trash about a driver. You and I, before the race, We were having a conversation with Phil Roberts. Phil Roberts was not confident, was not happy about having this race at Spa, just did not seem to be confident at all about the product that they had today. Then they go and win the race, which proves to me racing drivers don't know jack. Either that or Phil Roberts was playing possum, one of the two.
I mean, I'd say playing Possum. He did the exact same thing last week as well. And of course, okay, he didn't exactly win last week's race, but he was about 20 seconds ahead of the next AM driver. Just happened to crash into a wall and end their race very promptly there. So I think Phil Roberts at this point just one of those drivers that's like, oh yeah, it's going to be a horrible race, I'm going to do badly, it's not going to go my way. And then it turns out it all does go their way. I mean, you've got some people like that. And maybe it's like a little tactic thing. Don't expect it to go well and then it does. Personally, I'm more of a, if I think it's going to go badly, it does go badly sort of person. So definitely not my style going into the race. But yeah, Phil Roberts had an absolutely brilliant race one there. Of course, a lot of that did come from Yo's was it Yo? Yeah, I think it was Yo. A lot of it came from Yo's misfortune. They, of course, had a 6-car buffer and just got into one accident too many, constantly getting forced wide into many of the corners and having to rejoin the track. So that's another thing, Jesse, is you got to try and keep it on the track and don't let the other cars around you bully you, because every single time you go slightly off track and have to rejoin, that is precious time you're losing to the car behind. And we say this every week, if you go off track, that is probably 2, maybe even 3 positions you can wave goodbye to in an instant.
Yeah, it certainly is. That car has googly eyes, Mawson, just so we're aware. That's interesting. Don't worry, by the way,
Oh,
we
that's
haven't
scary.
turned the gravity off in Belgium. They are still running gravity and Newton's law through the beautiful Belgian countryside. That's just how the car is staged, because the GT straight, which is what we're on, is at such an angle. The way that ACC jacks the cars up, it makes them appear like they're levitating. That also is an interesting indicator for those of you at home and for us in the booth to let us know that they're in their box, if you will, and they're not actually on the grid. Any car that's sitting on the grid correctly is indicative of a car that is hit ready to drive. Any car that is sort of levitating as if it's being beamed up by Scotty, that is a car that is either in the menu or setting up the car. And as soon as it drops to the ground, it is ready to race. Nearly everybody ready to race now. Can't see a single car up on the jack stands. It is a bit frightening, though, when you see the cars fall to the ground like that. But I've been told in the past that, unlike in other sims, which this is normal, by the way, it happens in other sims as well, unlike in other sims, it actually doesn't damage the car. There are a couple of them, and I've played them where that falling onto the grid can damage suspension components. Not a problem in ACC, and it just looks very odd indeed. Well, race number 1, a 20-minute sprint race. We're going to double the length. We're going to double the points. We're going to double your fun. Well, they were 2 and 3 wide. What are we going to go? We're going to go 4 wide this time?
I'm going to be bold and say we're going to go 5 wide.
That's
at
insane.
some point. In fact, I'm not even sure it's possible. Of course, actually, to be fair, you've got a huge runoff coming out of Eau Rouge. Like, there is tarmac on both sides of the track still, so we probably could get 5 wide if we're lucky. I doubt we will actually see it. But then again, this is the cup car for the BMW M2. It wouldn't actually surprise me that much. At the same time, I think it's certainly possible here, especially with all of these drivers wanting to score as high in the points as possible. My biggest fear here is we've got to go through turn 1 Eau Rouge all over again. Now, last time, didn't actually have too big of a problem for it. Most cars got through it completely safe without going wide. Some cars did have to go a little bit wide, but still managed to keep it safe. And actually, the incident came on the straight afterwards. So, who knows? Maybe I might be scared about nothing. We might be about to have 2 completely clean starts at Spa here.
I wouldn't bet the farm on it, Tim. I don't know anything about that. As we know, you and I know this well, doing GT4 Thursdays, as it was for many a season, but one race was always fairly calm, one was chaotic, and you ask yourself at home, the same question I'm asking myself in the booth, was that chaotic or was that calm? I'm going to go ahead and say that was calm. There were many accidents in the first couple laps, but they were always one or two cars, largely. I think it's about to turn the wick up because everybody knows if you had a good race like Robin Schaefer, you're not fussed with it really. You just want to do exactly what you did before and make Martin Lawrence and Ripper and Verstappen chase you because you know that you have it in you to win the race. It could be a double win for Schaefer if he was able to pull it off. But this is what I'm worried about. That mess, the middle of the field, the gaggle, the wad, whatever you call it. That's where you don't want to be. And Michael Redford joined us in the interim. Of course, Redford had a difficult race. Number one says that they were both losing and gaining several places every single lap. Yeah, we saw that, Redford, and we wish you better luck in this race here. The start certainly didn't go your way, but was able to recover somewhat in race number one. Well, race two, I'm betting it's chaotic. Tim Peck, how do you feel?
I gotta agree with you, honestly, Jesse Lee. I think looking back at the 4 other races that we've had so far in this season, race 1 was very, very tame. So I'd say if we're going with the old 1 calm race, 1 chaotic, this by default has to be the chaotic race. So we'll see how it turns out. Maybe we're both wrong. Maybe we're about to have the first double calm race we've had since I think season 4 of the GT4 Championship. So we'll see whether we can actually pull that off today with cars still going around the track for their outlap. Of course, what a lot of these drivers will be taken into account now, Jesse, is that this race is not just double the length, it is also double the points. So Schaefer will be very happy with a win in race 1, would be even happier to get a win in race 2 here. And I'm wondering, these double points, is that going to be the kick that Lawrence needs to be a bit more pushy with Schaefer? We've seen Martin Lawrence has been so aggressive in this championship, so fighty with Schaefer a lot of the time. But this last race, Jesse, I think Lawrence just wasn't at his maximum energy. For what I'm looking for in race 2 is more energy out of Lawrence and trying to make more out of the opportunities that he is given. But I mean, we're coming round the first corner now. Of course, the start-finish straight is going to be on the next straight for the first lap, and that will be when we cross the start line.
Tim, do me a favor.
Yeah.
Do me a favor. All right, we're going to do what the driver should be doing. We're going to breathe in, we're going to breathe out. We're going to go to green.
Well, I mean, I think it's going to be chaotic, but Jesse Lee, take us away.
No, that's not what I meant. I'm just saying.
You take it away.
You got to be calm.
You gotta take it.
Be calm. There's 30 to 40 of you. The green flag is out, and it's a nice start by Robin Schaefer. Better than the first race, you'd have to say. Lawrence slots in immediately to get the left-right switch back up. Rouge and Ratty on side-by-side for third place. Verstappen and Ripper wasting absolutely no time getting into that position. Several cars taking the sort of inside route.
Sorry.
And they almost all of them survive. They're 2 and 3 wide. They're going to go 4 wide. Right there in the middle of the pack. They are 4 wide. That's incredible. They better sort that out. Otherwise, it's going to be a mess getting into the right-hander. They're down to 3 wide. That's still not simple enough. Somebody's going to get turned shortly. No, they're still 3 wide. They're not turning each other. They're going to work it out. They're going to get back to double file. A little bit of a wiggle, but other than that, they just about made it. How on earth did they do that?
I don't know, Jesse. There were several packs of people there going 3 wide into that corner. Every single one of them managed to continue racing and not crash into each other. I don't think anyone even slightly tapped each other going through that first corner there, which is an absolute miracle. But some great driving from everyone. Calatillon goes for a move on Chamberlain. Chamberlain will close out at the last second, almost making contact, but the number 30 car will continue hot on the heels of the 725, going for the inside as we go through the long left-handed set of corners here. Coming to the right though, Chamberlain will continue to hold that position, but Calatillon's not given up yet. Still looking to try and climb up into that 13th place, although it looks like they've gone... Oh no! Have they lost grip? They've just gone straight into the wall. Will rejoin the track ahead of Jan Yo behind, but that will be a lot of damage for Calatillon, and I don't think they're going to have it to carry the speed now on the straight, Jesse. That might be the end of Calatillon's race here.
That was mega, and I absolutely think that's what happened. I think they got loose. You can do that. you get too far up that curb with too much steering input, it'll just spin you around. I think that's what happened to Claudia there, and they, at best I can tell, they did get into the inside, technically the outside wall. Jordan Daly going incredibly wide there, and gets back on the track as he continues to be side by side with Claudia for the time being. Vigeshcu right behind them as Daly's completely missed the chicane at the end of the track. That's going to cost him several positions. He's going to get sideways, and it's going to be even worse. He's going to be in the gaggle of cars now. Borodai on the outside of Boardman, I believe that is, but it's so hard to tell because they're all still together. Boardman, Simons, Macha, they're all right there, all fighting over a top 10 spot, all fighting over the lead in silver, with the exclusion of Boardman, of course, because he is a pro driver. Side by side up Eau Rouge and Radion. This often goes wrong. It doesn't on this occasion, but just about gets as close as you can to the inside wall on the newly revised Spa. That would be almost impossible to do.
Well, Tornberg's going to benefit the most there. They're now turning their attention to Borodai ahead, having got the better run out of that corner. Actually, there's Boardman ahead, not Borodai, I believe. No, that is Borodai. I'm confused, Jesse. There are so many cars right now fighting for a position here, but Tornberg has had a great run, not managing to get the move done in the corners. They will have to slot back for now, but Heilmann trying to hold off Matcha and Simons at the same time, whilst trying to find their way through Marks ahead. Will drop back from Marks, but will also manage to hold off the two silvers behind. Matcha currently leading the silvers, is trying to keep the number 28 back as well. Simons, though, has been attacking the rear of Bart for the entire lap so far, and will, I imagine, continue to for as long as possible. Jesse, this is what I want to see from Lawrence at the front, although looking at the front, Verstappen is currently in second place, not Lawrence, so something happened on that first lap, and Verstappen now is going to be the one to have to put the pressure on Schaefer, but for now Simons in silver is going to look to try and get into that first place spot in the split. Bart, though, managing to hold off Simons, and Borodai drop back. Give Simons a bit of a chance to do some damage here and maybe be a bit more aggressive as Roche goes around the corner, watching Watson's Wan fight for position ahead, but I believe Watts here has just been forced back, and Roche will take the position. Oh no, actually, Watts managing to hold it together, will be able to hold off Roche. But Jesse, how many times have we seen this already in just the one lap? Someone goes for an overtake, it doesn't happen, they're forced back, and it's the person waiting behind that gets the position.
Yeah, it very much is the way, and well, we talked about it already, but it's about momentum with these cars. You cannot lose momentum. Hagstrom Vigeshcu going around the outside of a Razor, trying to make that pass for a top 15 spot. He's going to have to do it the old-fashioned hard way, but goes to the inside, to the outside, back to the inside again. A little bit of a touch there, maybe, or maybe just a little bit loose from John Razor. That's going to be side by side as they go down into turn one. It's going to be really hard to convert this into a position gain for Oliver Hagstrom Vigeshcu around the outside, but it's not unheard of if you keep up your momentum. Won't happen on this occasion. Invites Jan Yo. Jan Yo now in the background, looking to get inside the top 15 for themselves. Already has the lead in the AM class. Has to be very careful indeed not to get mixed up with cars in other classes when they have everything to lose, already leading in their own class. Phil Roberts is several seconds behind this fight, but if Jan Yo gets involved and anything would go wrong, that would change very, very quickly indeed. Speaking of, this battle here continues for a top 5 spot. Pedro has it. Heilmann, Macha, and Simons all want it. Now joined by Alexander Borodai now.
But Heilmann was neck and neck with Marks going into that corner. They looked like they were about to get the move done, but did have to tuck behind as Marks manages to force Heilmann a little bit wide. Borodai as well, looking for the move on Simons, was neck and neck again going into the hairpin, but Simons got in the better end of the stick, forces Borodai to try and look for another move as Borodai going very wide there, just trying to find a way through the rear of this number 28 car, and has not managed to do so yet. Jesse, it looks like there's not a way around Simons here. Borodai having to tuck back for now, and it's actually dropping off a little bit to what they were, but these cars, they have so low acceleration that you have to be so close to the car ahead, and Borodai just not managing to
Tim,
keep
we
that
have a
gap
new
tight.
leader.
Oh yeah, we do. What happened to Schaefer?
Nothing too much. Schaefer's right behind Verstappen, but Christoph Verstappen has taken the lead in the 747. And that's interesting because we assumed something happened to Martin Lawrence. Maybe Verstappen just passed him, and now he has passed Schaefer. Schaefer still has the Speed Juice Fastest Lap of the Race award, but Verstappen has made that pass. So was that a mistake by Robin, or is that just the pace of Verstappen now?
Well, we'll watch for a little bit, see if we can work out whether Verstappen just has an unstoppable pace. I gotta say, I do feel sorry for Verstappen. Has possibly had 2 brilliant overtakes so far, and we have not managed to catch any of them. But Verstappen now looks like they're gonna hold off Schaefer. Schaefer, though, Jesse, does have the fastest lap, which makes me think it was a mistake from Schaefer there, rather than Verstappen just managing to have raw paces. Ripper now sets the fastest lap. We currently have a 4-car fight for first place right now. Verstappen leads, Schaefer in second, Lawrence in that final podium spot with Ripper wanting to put themselves on that podium. There's then a 3-second gap to fifth, so it's just this chain of 4 cars fighting at the front. Schaefer, though, looking for a way through, maybe on a Rouge, but can't find a way to get neck and neck with Verstappen, as Verstappen again manages to hold on to that first place position. Jesse, I gotta say, I said I wanted more of a fight, and I said I wanted someone to take the fight to Schaefer in this race too. Verstappen has managed to do that, but Schaefer not willing to give up, trying to go neck and neck with Verstappen into the next corner, will not be alongside Verstappen, will manage to hold off for now, but Schaefer, they want that win, and they want... it looks like going alongside Jesse!
Oh my goodness, side by side, Robin Schaefer rubbing fenders with Verstappen. They're still going at it. Schaefer's going to get through, I think, down the inside. Here comes Martin Lawrence. Martin Lawrence up the inside of Verstappen, and here comes Ripper. The fastest lap of the race, the fastest car on the track involved, all 4 cars. Robin Schaefer back out front, but will it last? It looks like Verstappen is losing a little bit of pace. Defensive down to the inside of Pouon. Ripper's going to try and make this move as well. He's going to convert it, I think, and get by Martin Lawrence, a new driver in P3. The 666 has made it up into the 3rd spot. Somehow Martin Lawrence, after looking like they were going to take 2nd place, has lost out here.
Well, Ripper is still trying to keep on Verstappen, who has had a very I was say whiskey couple of corners there, just trying to get through, really fighting the car. You can see just trying to get that grip, but Verstappen does manage to hold on to 2nd place. Ripper trying to keep the gap as close as possible, looking to try and put their way through Verstappen, and Lawrence has dropped off the back now slightly, will not be in a position to strike like Ripper was. But I mean, what a brilliant overtake from Ripper there on Lawrence. Lawrence looked like they had the position on Verstappen, and then Ripper appeared out of nowhere, put it down the inside, and instead was the one to get the benefit from that. Ripper has had an absolutely brilliant race so far. It looks like going to get a good run into the final chicane here, Jesse. Can they put it next to Verstappen and maybe fight for 2nd place? If they're going to break slightly later, it will put them neck and neck with Verstappen into the final chicane. Will be on the inside as well for the final corner. Lawrence back in the fight, puts pressure on Verstappen from behind, and I believe that will be the overtake from Ripper. Will lead going across the start-finish line, but Verstappen still has the inside here, Jesse. Will they break later? Will they manage to hold on to the inside? It looks like Ripper is going to try and hold on to this position, managing to hold on to the outside here, but they are still neck and neck going into the next straight. And Lawrence, you can see, we're watching from his onboard right now, just wants to pick up the pieces, but is it going to happen?
Oh, they're going side by side up Radion. It's going to be completely off of the racetrack for Ripper. Here comes Lawrence, a terrible Rouge and Radion for Verstappen. It's going to be a double pass opportunity as Martin Lawrence has gotten 3rd place back in. Might have had the best Radion of everyone, looking to take 2nd place here, going around the outside. Do they have the pass made? No, they do not. Ripper late on the brakes down the inside. Oh, they touched a little bit, and Ripper's got off. He's going to straight line the 2nd part of that turn, and Verstappen takes a look but can't get any sort of fender on of Martin Lawrence. Oh, was that defensive or a mistake? That was a mistake from Ripper. Ripper got too much curb. It's going to be Martin Lawrence up into P2. Robin Schaefer laughing all the way to the bank. 2.2 seconds in front of this. Not involved. Has pulled vastly away from the group, all fighting for 2nd place. Martin Lawrence in 1 lap has went from 4th back to 2nd place. Incredible stuff.
Well, this time last lap, Schaefer had only just got the move done on Verstappen for first place, and they'll be happy just to be clear of this fight entirely. Well, this is the fight literally just behind. It looks like Marks has gone way too wide there. Harman going to try and make an opportunity of this. Is not going to be close enough to make a dive into the corner. That's not going to stop Bart, though, trying to close that gap as well. But Harman continues to put the pressure on Marks from behind, not managed to get the move done just yet, and you can see there's no room here. Marks has done a brilliant job on the defense, continues to keep the door closed for Harman, and will continue to keep the momentum through. That is the key part there, is that they have the momentum. What I want to see here from Harman, Jesse, is I want to see Harman stick their nose just between the rear and the curb of Marks. That will be enough to set off the momentum and just knock it completely, of course, and that hopefully will open up the door for a lot more opportunity here. Is going through the next set of corners. It looks like Harman's got a better run as they're in the slipstream of Marks, really wide out of that corner there. I don't think they were anywhere near the track whatsoever, but that means they will have to slow down to avoid the warning for the drive. With Boardman goes for a move on Simon's ahead, tries to keep the inside but will not manage to have it done coming out of the final corner. Simon's there, holds it together, will continue to hold that place.
Incredible stuff up and down the field. Tim Peck and I are going to need a lozenge after this. We do apologize
I need a breath.
we do apologize for yelling down your ears, but it is exciting. At some point, we just become fans as well. Lucas trying to make a very wide pass, and it might not work, and it certainly will not. Miller will pull back in front. Yes, indeed the case. And a couple of other things I don't want to get lost in all of this as we continue to watch this fight is Jan Yo, who had several seconds of lead on Phil Roberts. That has pretty much evaporated at this point, but I think Yo has just gotten around Nordquist, or maybe Daly got around Phil Roberts, one way or the other. The gap is only about a second and a half, so the gap for the lead in AM is coming down. It was bigger a few laps ago as Jan Yo continues to try. Oh no! Jan Yo has had an issue now, just as I was speaking about them, and that's given Phil Roberts the lead in that class. I noticed Jordan Daly is leapfrogged everybody. Oh, and somebody's massively off there, look.
I don't know what happened, Jesse. I think I'm just
that was a 725, I'm pretty sure, that went off. But let's see what happened to Jan Yo. Is this already after the incident? I think it might have been.
Well, I think it might have been. Apparently it's a long replay from Ryan
so
there in the broadcast.
Okay, so
well, we'll see what happens.
Up for now. Let's see. Coming after the Kimmel straight, what happened here? Was there something that happened in front of Jan that caused some sort of collision? I have no idea, but either way, that was after whatever occurred, because that was Jackson in that replay that was in front of Yo, and that is still the case in live pictures. So whatever happened before our Evolution Bradion. So very interesting to see that. And I know Daly got by everybody, so I would hate to think Nordquist and Yo got together, because like I said, Daly was behind Nordquist and Daly leapfrogged everybody. Very interesting. Nevertheless, Phil Roberts back in the lead in the AM class now. Bart Macha holds a 1 second lead on Bourdais. Oh my word! There were two cars involved there. That replay revealed a lot. There was a car backwards further up the road. That was Jan Yo spun around that had contact with another car. But there was a third car that was backwards further up the road. Now that was very interesting, and that was a huge kerfuffle into turn one that left a bunch of cars backwards, and a severe contact, I would say, with Jan Yo. They have fallen back several more positions. Michael Redford now, or Mike Redford as he's dubbed in this series, up to second in the AM class. Christoph Verstappen still fighting inside the top five, has some more visitors. He's got Marquez behind him, and he's brought Benjamin Heilman with him.
I'm lost for words. I don't know what happened to Yo there. I'd quite like to know who the other car was, but I don't think we're going to be finding out anytime soon. So it looks like Holman there, looking for a move at the back of the pack. Verstappen, of course, trying to get through Ripper back into that podium slot. And Marks and Holman have joined the fight for the podium slot as well. And Jesse, Lawrence has given himself a big gap to Ripper behind. 2.3 seconds is not the hugest gap we've seen in the series, but it will be comfortable enough for Lawrence to just focus on trying to close the gap now to Schaefer ahead if they can find the pace. Well, Verstappen, we saw them get a really rough end of the fight. They're currently just trying to find a way back up onto that podium after a rough couple of corners that saw both Ripper and Lawrence fight their way through there. Here's the fight round in 12th between Vorak and Kalatiad. We've watched this one. This seems to have been going on since lap 1, Jesse, as it looks like Vorak here might be going around the outside here. Kalatiad trying to force himself back into this. They went wide a corner, a couple corners back, and they're just trying to push themselves back through. Vorak here has managed to do so and will hold on to that 12th place here. Vorak gonna have to continue to try and find a way through Kalatiad ahead, but that fight, Jesse, has been going on since lap 1 between the 30 and the 34.
It sure has, and if you look back in previous weeks, this isn't the first time they've raced each other either, so interesting history between those two, and hopefully it ends very amicably today on the racetrack. They're certainly racing each other respectfully and also very hard at the same time. Everybody is. Like we've mentioned it a few times, you can't let off the throttle here. You have to, for lack of a better term, go for it every single lap. You lose a little, you lose a lot. Just look at our battle for the lead that we had earlier in the race. And speaking of that, give credit to Martin Lawrence. Did not panic. Went all the way back to P4. Didn't panic. Got it all back in one lap. Less than 3 minutes. Got it all back, and looks like the faster of that group of cars, all except Schaefer out in front. Jan Yo continuing their march today, despite the fact that they have had major frontal impact with that car. Saw them drop all the way back to 3rd in the class, and the aptly named I Like Taters car. I can't disagree. But the 48 is obviously struggling there. That certainly would cause some sort of suspension damage, but trying to limit the damage into the points today, just trying to keep that car going the right direction. It doesn't seem too awful bad, but certainly there's got to be some sort of major aero damage or something. I don't know how much aero the M2 has, but regardless, that was a severe knock to the front of the car.
I don't know, Jesse. Yo went off track. They slotted in about 24th, and well, you can see they're already back up to 21st. It's almost like they knocked off part of the car and have just suddenly now they're lighter and can find more speed. What's facing the wrong way there on the corner? We're going to find out in a race replay exactly what has just happened here. Maybe there's a bit of contact. It looks like they're going very close to each other into the corner, and what happens? No, actually, I think they might just hook themselves on the inside curb They've just hooked themselves on the inside curb. They got a slight tap from behind, but I think they'd already started to spin at that point. And what's now will be just tucking back onto the track here, try and continue the race. Well, they didn't pick up that much damage, that's sure. But back to what I was saying about Yo, Jesse. Yo dropped back into about 24th. Has just climbed back up to 21st instantly. And, well, a quick look at Roche in the pits there. It was Roche the other car that was facing the wrong way? Or was that someone completely different?
It's a good question. So many cars, it's hard to keep up. Kaladiad, by the way, is in no name and crashed, and that car is not moving. The 30 car is still sitting up there in no name. And I don't know what has went on with Carlos Kaladiad, but some sort of issue. That reeks to me of... Oh my.
Oh.
Yeah, that reeks to me of a mechanical issue, not with the car specifically, but with the sim racing hardware. That was very odd. They had already crashed on their way into No Name, but the way that car responded after the crash and kind of drove back onto the track and listed off, I feel that was a sim racing hardware failure of some variety. That car has returned to the pit lane and has retired from the race.
Well, Franken currently on the inside of Redford here. He's going to try and push them out wide in the first corner. And Yo going to try and capitalise off this. Also goes for the inside of Redford. Not managed to do that. Redford just about holds on to that second place in the AM split. But Yo has already caught up to their closest rival. Jessin's going to continue the push, try and push their way back up through the field here. Redford will hold it together though through Eau Rouge, and Yo has dropped back for now, though they're looking now to try and get side by side with Redford. I think they've had a much better exit than the number 24 car did, but again it seems that they've had to lift off slightly, and then they don't have the momentum to continue to get the car side by side. Like you can see here, even with the slipstream, it's not quite enough, although it looks like Redford backing out slightly will be a lot earlier on the brakes to avoid Franken, and Yo's going to take advantage of this as they go for a move on the inside. Loses grip on the car, the rear almost ends up in front of the bonnet and will manage to catch it, but again dropping off Redford here. Redford will get a slight breather and hold off Yo for now, but Jan Yo, ever since that incident, Jesse, has had outstanding pace and just wants to climb through the field as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that was intent by Jan Yo to make that pass. Didn't quite come off on that occasion, and that will do nothing but slow down their fight, because they've got to, if they want to contend for the win, they're going to have to close down the better part of 10.5 seconds to get up there and fight Phil Roberts. There's a couple of cars in between them. Jan knows that they have to get a move on here and went for a move. It didn't quite work. Nearly lost the car, but excellent recovery to keep it on the track and out of a wall. Certainly others have been less lucky. Svensson in the 668 trying to make a pass on Jackson for P21. Can't quite get it done. Will they run down the inside? They are going to. Running wide is Jackson, and look, here's Hladky, who's come into the picture as well. Everybody fighting for 21st place. These three very much intent, and I love this. Hladky following Svensson, who's the faster off the corner. You're going to take the slipstream of the car that gives you the chance to make the pass yourself. Still side by side, Jackson and Svensson. Very tight corner to be side by side, but clear now is Svensson on Jackson. Pass made off the track, pass made by Matthias Hladky. Is that legal? I don't know. It's not for me to say, but still side by side, still in the chicane, as close as you like. A little bit of a touch. Position not surrendered by Jackson there, as they just about hold on, as Les Stevenson's found their ways into the fray and is looking around the outside. The closes up, doesn't want to run to the grass, goes down the inside, and will be side by side themselves with Hladky. Hladky is getting side by side with everybody on this lap.
It looks like Stevenson might have the better run down into Eau Rouge here as well. We've got much better exit than Hladky out of the first corner. The Hladky's still side by side, will not be given up just yet, but Stevenson tucks in just before the beginning of Eau Rouge, and that will ensure that they get up into that 23rd position. A brilliant move from Stevenson there that continued basically from the final corner all the way up to Eau Rouge. Oh, here's Yo there now again putting pressure on Redford. Same corner as before. Can they hold it together this time? Are they going to catch too much curb again? As yet again they hit the curb, this time not being able to brake, and will make contact with Redford, sending Redford down the exit route, but will let Redford continue ahead. So Yo just not making it happen. Like
Lucas
30 goes exactly the same as Yo did the lap before, catches the inside curb, loses the rear, but does manage to rescue the car before it goes too far off the track. Boardman putting pressure on Bart ahead, just about trying to get side by side there, but not managing to get side by side. We'll have to tuck back for now and look for a move later on in the lap, but has been closing on Bart very, very frequently, just knocking out time each lap, and will continue to try and find a way through. Boardman right now wants to be fighting Heilman, Marks, Verstappen ahead, but just has a buffer of silvers between them. And I've got to say, Jesse, Boardman had some really good pace in practice. Led practice for, I'd say, the majority of the time. It wasn't until the end when Verstappen and Ripper started setting fast laps that Boardman lost that first place. But Boardman, after looking so strong in practice, just hasn't been able to find it so far in the races. I'm wondering if it's what we were talking about earlier. I didn't get a good quali. I'm wondering if they've just struggled to climb. And it's like we said, if you don't get a good quali, you're going to struggle in the rest of the race.
Yeah, realistically, it doesn't matter how fast you are in a car like this. This is a touring car. You can get stuck behind somebody even on a track as big and as wide and as fast as this. It doesn't really matter. Qualifying is very important. It is more important on the tighter tracks that we go to, like Bathurst, for instance. But that all being said, it is still very important, especially when you have 40 plus cars entering the championship. And even moving inside the top 10 is very difficult at best, even for a very fast car. What you're really hoping is whoever you're chasing is slowed down by somebody else. And we certainly see that up and down the field tonight. And I say tonight because it is going dark. Our broadcaster was excited by the proposition of racing in the dark with touring cars around Spa. And on top of that, had a little nugget of information for me as we go side by side here. We saw Jan Yo slide the car and save it earlier. Turns out, IRL, he races little Legends cars. If you're not familiar with what they are, they're basically 1/5 scale racing cars, typically based on American sedans and stuff like that back in the 40s and the 50s. But I love that style of race. It's got a little motorcycle engine in it, and you have to be a real pro to slide and save those cars. That could be an explanation of how he's able to save all of these slides that he's had, but I digress from that. Speaking of a slide right there, look at this. It's going to be heavy contact. Svensson gets ran into by Redford, who was not in control of their car, and here comes Jan Yo, as if on cue, around the outside. This is incredible stuff. Where has Redford gone? Has Redford gone into the wall? I don't see him. I think he might have. Joachim Svensson hangs on to that position just ever so slightly. And yes, Redford has had a bit of a spin. Jordan Daly here up inside the top 15, and Pedro Marquez continuing to hound drivers inside the top 5. This time Verstappen, who has fallen off of Ripper, and this is for 4th place. And they're bringing, as always, where there is Pedro Marquez, there is Benjamin Heilman in tow.
Well, Heilman is going to watch from behind as Marquez tries to make a move on Verstappen here. Going into the final chicane will not be alongside, so won't be able to push Verstappen anywhere, but will still continue the chase. Heilman again closes the gap, just waiting for the opportunity to arise. And if we've learned anything so far, Jesse, it's that Heilman is currently in the best place right now. They just need to make sure that they follow through whenever Marquez gets the move done, or if Verstappen manages to push to the outside like has just happened. Marquez goes wide into turn 1, Heilman goes for the inside, and going into Eau Rouge, they're going to be neck and neck. All Heilman has to do now is try and make sure that they are the car that is slightly ahead, and they will have the advantage. They're on the right hand side here, Jesse, as you can see, just going to hold that centre line, push Marquez slightly to the side, and Heilman makes the move. Like I said, best place to be is behind the 2 cars fighting. Heilman now will turn their attention to Verstappen ahead, and will hopefully be putting pressure on Verstappen as well. But all that's going to do, Jesse, is help Marquez get that position back.
It certainly is. I start to worry about this. All these cars going completely wide. I know it's only a 40-minute race, but we have seen in very, very quick succession cars getting drive-through penalties in GT3 machinery around here. I don't think it's beyond the scope of reason to think that some of these drivers are sitting on a 3rd warning already as Daly tries to fight around the outside of Rosso. Can't do it. Now going down to the inside. That will become the outside. It will become the inside again, as it has done, but just not quite enough to the inside to make that pass stick. Steven actually brings up a good point in our chat about remembering the World Tour at Silverstone as a car straight lines. That's Jackson, I believe, who has straight lined the left-right S's at the top of the hill. But Steven brought up a good point. At the World Tour, when it got dark at Silverstone, there was moisture on the track, and that is part of ACC. The atmospheric conditions are calculated realistically, and the track loses grip. So, Steven, you might be onto something, and that might be why some of these cars are getting a bit more sideways. But it's also, like Tim pointed out as well, these cars will chew up tires, and if you wear out or overheat your tires in the first couple laps, that comes to bite you at the end of a stint. A little bit of contact, Daly and Rosso there.
Daly, brilliant overtake there, was fighting neck and neck with Rosso through a lot of corners. I think it lasted probably about 4 or 5 corners there, Jesse. Managed to finally get the move done, albeit with a slight tap to the side of Rosu, but not enough to push them too far back, of course. Tornberg, is it Tornberg? No, it was Vigstu will benefit off that as well in the number 81, so they'll be happy. But of course, Daly now has pressure from behind as well. Phil Roberts, they're currently leading the AM pack, but they are under pressure from Nordvist behind. They're also trying to close the gap to Vorak, who is fighting now Rosu ahead. So Vorak here going to go alongside into the final chicane. Will have the right side of the track, I'd say, but it is the left-hand side, of course, in literal terms. But won't have enough to force Rosu wide, and Rosu will continue to hold on to their position ahead of Vorak, who will now drop slightly as Nordvist finds their way through Roberts, closing the gap, of course, to Janyo behind, who's just desperately trying to get as close to Roberts as possible after the incident we saw earlier. Well, Vorak is going to continue to chase. We've got a nice little train forming here, Jesse. I think that was about, what, 7, 8 cars, and actually, looking at this fight for the podium, this is turning out to be about 7, 6 cars as well. So a lot of trains forming along the track in these final 7 minutes of the race here.
Lucas Bettiotti trying to make some moves here, down in 31st place, trying to get by Im Young for 30th. Im Young was in action here one night ago, the Diamond Drive Cup, so getting all of their Belgium feel, or Phil, I should say, F-I-L-L, in just 2 days, will Im Young, but giving up the spot there, the 30th place spot. And a couple of things I've noticed, Martin Lawrence is catching the leader of the race, and as you might expect, Mr. Tim Peck, since I am here, I might as well do the math, and I have been doing on this occasion. If he continues to pick up 3/10 a lap, he might just get there.
No, he won't. There's not a chance. There's like 3 laps left.
I did the math, Tim Peck, and I'm telling you, he might just get there. Andy Boardman on Bart Macha. This is not a place for in-class position, but for overall. Boardman continuing to try and get further up inside the top 10, and this happening somewhere vaguely right in front of that fight, this train of cars, as Benjamin Heilman has got by Pedro Marquez. Look,
Heilman going to be very happy with that. Has been looking at the rear of Marquez basically for the last 35 minutes, so can probably draw it from memory at this point, but they do manage to find their way through and will now be treated to the rear of Verstappen instead, so they'll be fighting for that 4th place position. We can see going into the final chicane as Marquez tries to take the position back, looks for the move around Heilman, not managing to hold on to it, as is that Borodai at the back there also trying to find a way through Marquez. Went a little bit wide out of the final corner. He's going to try and look for the outside on the first corner as well, because Marquez covers the inside, but Borodai is going to be a little bit too far back as Marquez just about avoids the rear of Heilman ahead. That is going to slow them down, ruin their momentum, and as we know, that will not be good for them. Borodai with the better exit out turn 1 will take the position and has overtaken Marquez there. Jesse, Marquez looked to have that corner done and dusted, but Heilman must have been a bit early on the brakes, and Marquez had to avoid them. Looks like Marquez has gone wide there, so has Borodai. Both cars will return to the track, but this time Marquez will be ahead of Borodai yet again. These two really fighting it out going into the final 5 minutes.
Andy Boardman's doing the same thing with Bart Macha, trying to go around the outside, doing it the hard way, we say. Could be just about dead even as they enter the right-hander, but the better angle for Macha will stifle Andy Boardman once again. I thought both those cars, by the way, Marquez and Bourdais, I thought they were going both into the wall. I'm going to be completely real and honest with you. I thought there's no way they're getting those cars turned. They did, and they somehow both survived. Vorak here racing Rasu really hard. They've been racing each other fender to fender, and I mean that literally, right now, as the Vorak's going to get spun side by side. Contact, the car on the inside spins to the inside wall, and that will eliminate that battle. Rasu will take that by default, but Dvorak will not be pleased that he was given no room on the inside, surely. Mike Redford in 26th place, looking to the inside of Tom Watts. doesn't quite get the angle and instead runs wide. I felt like that was slightly on purpose, trying to get a run through this section of corners as not to continue to lose time. Boardman continuing to race. Matcha here, still stuck in 9th place, has not had a great opportunity to this point, but is this the one?
Well, Jesse, I cannot believe we've not seen a single drive-through penalty. Every time...
I was thinking...
Every time we watch some cars go through Eau Rouge, like none of them are even on the track anymore. Most of them are about 10 meters to the left or the right-hand side of it, but somehow all of them avoiding picking up enough warnings for a drive-through penalty. So you almost have to hand it to the drivers at that point. They found some way to avoid it. Boardman here looks for a move on Bart, has gone alongside, will be pushing them to the outside on the final part of the corner. Bart sliding side, he's going to put no momentum, and that is Boardman with the move done, but now Simon's putting the pressure on Bart from behind. This is for position in split as well. Will Simons be able to make it up into that second place spot? Looks like they don't quite have it neck and neck with Bart for T1. Looks for the switchback move, not going to be able to do it as well as Bart cuts off the inside, planting their car right in the middle of the track there. Bart won't be too upset losing the move to Boardman, but does now have to worry about Simons behind going up into Eau Rouge together. We'll see if any of these cars manage to keep it on the track. It looks like all 4 of them have managed to keep it on the... Oh, looks like actually maybe Tornberg there might have gone slightly wide on the exit. But either way, all cars have managed to keep it more on the track than have done so far. Simon's going to continue to put the pressure on Bart ahead, but of course Bart now has the slipstream from Boardman that will help them to just carry them through the straight and keep the distance enough to Simons so that Simons can't get alongside. That's got to be the key here. Jesse, this is possibly the final lap. Actually, there might be one more after this. It depends on where Schaefer crosses the line. But that being said, Simons needs to find a way to close the gap enough to Bart that they can get alongside for one of these corners. But right now, Bart, with a sudden burst of adrenaline it seems, putting the pressure back on Boardman, trying to fight their way back through and give themselves the buffer yet again.
Well, Bart Matcha is going to have to get a move on. It took Boardman the entire race to get that one position. How frustrating would that be if Matcha repassed them almost immediately? Jordan Daly's been making steady progress this entire race and is now on the back of Hagstrom, Vigaskew, and Heilman, who finally got by Pedro Marquez for 5th place, finds Pedro Marquez still right behind him, but he'll be driving out the windscreen because of Christoph Verstappen in front of them. Heilman is trying to do one better than he was trying to do a race ago, and he's going to have... Oh, it's going to be ever so close, Tim Peck, if we get one more lap or not. I just don't know.
I think we're going to get it. They're very close to the line, although it is going to be a race to the finish line for Schaefer. Of course, doesn't have the luxury that Wolf Machushka had last week of slowing down for the finish line. We'll have to cross the line with 8 seconds to go, which means there will be another lap out of this race. And I think there's a lot of cars right now who will be breathing a sigh of relief.
I hope they got their fuel right.
Well, Bart might not actually be on them. Bart is currently facing the pressure of Simons behind, does not care whether they overtake Boardman or not here, just needs to make sure they keep the gap big enough. Harman, though, will be very happy, gives them a chance to overtake Verstappen, although Marquez behind puts pressure on Harman into the first corner. Borodai spicing up the fight at the rear as well, not in the same splits as the 3 drivers ahead, but can absolutely make the difference in this battle. Harman trying to go alongside Verstappen into Eau Rouge, not going to quite be able to make it. We'll have to tuck behind for now, but we'll have a great exit onto the straight. I think the last 2 cars there are completely missing the final part of Eau Rouge, but don't care at this point in time if they don't have enough warnings. They're absolutely going to go all out on this final lap here as we see the fight for 4th unfold. Harman trying to get alongside Verstappen into corner. Looks like Marquez might be trying to go the other way as well, as Verstappen and Harman neck and neck through the corner, not able to get through as Harman. Verstappen managing to close it off, and Borodai forcing their way up next to Marquez. A slight contact behind will knock the 1-2A, of course, take them out of the fight here for 4th place, but will continue to make them defend this 6th place that they want to keep so they can keep the pressure up. But again, Marquez just being slowed down by the silver driver, not going to be happy with this on the final lap, wanting to keep up the pressure with Harman, who is still trying to find a way neck and neck with Verstappen here. We'll drop back slightly just before we go into the long left-hander. This is the point, Jesse, they really need to get neck and neck with Verstappen here. Is it going to happen before the end of the lap? We've got a couple more opportunities to do so. Will Holman go for a dive on the next corner, or are they just going to continue to follow behind? They're going to follow behind. Bourdais fancies their chances, goes for a move down around the outside of Marquez, neck and neck into this corner. A little bit of contact, but it's not going to sway either driver. Marquez continues to hold that 6th position as Bourdais continues to try and find a way through the 128.
I think that was all she wrote. Bourdais gave her a run, and I think Marquez just had the right lane. But will Benjamin Heilman send it? No battle out front. Lawrence was not making up enough time quick enough, and Robin Schaefer will likely win this race. But the question is, as Robin Schaefer comes to the line, is going to make it a perfect 2 for 2 on the day and an excellent drive. Martin Lawrence will come home second, Ripper in third. But what will happen here? Will Benjamin Heilman make a last gasp? But doesn't look like it. Verstappen looks like they're going to hang on for P4, and Heilman will come home in 5th. Marquez will have to settle for 6th as those two cars reverse their fortunes from race 1. Bourdais comes home in 7th, Boardman in 8th, Macha in 9th, Simons inside the top 10. Bourdais wins the silver class. Macha and Simons, your top 3 in silver, and Phil Roberts looking like they will eventually come to the line as well. But Thornburg, Vigescu, Rasu, and now Phil Roberts comes across the line and makes it a 2 for 2 for himself in the AM class today. The driver who said they didn't have a good feeling about today, well, they've got a good feeling now. Oh, look at this, a fight for 26th place.
Tom Bryant going really wide around the outside of Redford there, will continue to hold the position despite being a rather questionable overtake. Looks like they've overshot their final chicane, completely missing the corner. That gives Redford a chance to strike back. Tom tries to slot himself in, but will not have an opportunity to do it before Redford gets the exit. And wow, I've got to say, that is a very bittersweet end to Tom's race. It looks like Schultz is going to find Byron across the line, gives them a little shunt, and will push their way through across the line. Schultz will put themselves up into 28th just before the end of the race here. Ryan Gill as well, neck and neck with Brokima as they come across the line, but not being able to overtake. Brokima in the number 1 car will take 31st position, just ahead of Ryan Gill, and we're going to watch Vonja now as they try and make it to the end of the race here. Got a couple of corners left. Let's see how well they take them, Jesse. They've got 1 chicane left to do. We'll see if this can be the best chicane that they have done all race so far. Looks like they've hooked up that first part nicely, hitting the apex correctly, and the same with that one as well. A beautiful finish from Vonja, hitting the apexes perfectly in that final chicane. Well, that will be the end of race 2 here today, Jesse, and I've got to say, I don't think it was as chaotic as I was expected to be. I'd say, albeit that even though there was a lot of chaos here, Jesse, probably 2 calm races today in the grand scheme of how things go on Thursdays.
No, it certainly was. It was a lot of good fun, I think, is what I take away from this race. Every race that we've had, all of them thus far, all 6 races to this point, have been incredible to watch. And I've been watching on the couch for the first 2 weeks, and I'm so happy to be able to be in the booth and call a couple of these races. They're just so fun. They are very chaotic, but they're chaotic in an almost cathartic way, and I love that. Very few cars going off having big accidents. There's a lot of side-by-side, a lot of sideways action, a lot of going wide and making mistakes, but very few race-ending ones, and that is what is important. Oh my goodness, just what a finish we had today. And we got a couple of drivers that didn't feel good about their races that ended up winning both races. Schaefer winning both races in Pro, Roberts doing the same in AM, and some nice battles between the silver runners, between Macha and Bourdais and the like, and just fantastic stuff, all things considered. Wow. I guess we're just gonna have to come back and do this next week, and even still, I don't think we'll have it settled. I was trying to do the math in my head, Tim Peck, and the standings have me all 6s and 7s. I don't really know. I can't make heads or tails of it.
I can't tell you the exact math, Jesse, but I'm thinking we are probably looking at a three-way fight for the lead in Pro between, of course, Ripper, Schaefer, and Lawrence at the moment. Of course, Lawrence will be slightly back because they went into this race at 1 point behind Schaefer, came second place twice. Schaefer, of course, taking home first place twice as well. So I think that gap will be extended slightly, but it doesn't mean Lawrence is out of the championship fight. Of course, we've got 2 races left. We're at Laguna Seca next week for round 4, and then round 5, the final round, will be decided at Kailami. So we've got a couple more chaotic races. Honestly, Jesse, this season so far, the tracks have been, I'd say, very testing for the drivers, and you have to give it to them. For a brand new car, because this is the BMW M2 Cup, the first championship we run here, for the brand new car, the tracks have been, I'd argue, very, very mean, but the drivers have done so well fighting for it, and it has given us a brilliant championship. I can't wait to find out how that turns out next week. So if you've enjoyed today, make sure you hit that bell button to receive notifications of when we next go live. You can also like the video and subscribe, and that will let you know when we are next going to stream. Of course, we'll be back next Thursday the 5th of May. That will be Laguna Seca. That will be Jesse Lee with Miguel on the comms, and Ryan Mawson again will be broadcasting that race. Friday GT3 Championship, again, not going to be running tomorrow. That's going to be back in 1 week's time. That will be on the 6th of May. That's restarting with Jesse Lee. Night Owl, though, we're in the penultimate round, April the 30th. Stu will be broadcasting Jesse and Ted talking you through the commentary on the Night Owl Championship. Also be back on Monday. That'll be Ryan and Dalton on the comms. Mawson, again, will be broadcasting that. That will be May the 2nd. That is also the penultimate round as well. And Wednesday, the Diamond Drive Cup has just finished. So if you want to find out how that championship ended, you can go and watch the vlogs that are left over on our channel of that. Of course, Thursday next week, we've already talked about May the 5th, Jesse. It's going to be a good race. Laguna Seca, I've got to say, I'm going to be sad to miss it because there's been some brilliant fighting so far. But I'm glad you'll get to witness it. You'll have to catch me up on what happens. I wouldn't be surprised if this championship goes down to the final race.
Oh, it certainly will. And Tim, I'll do my best Tim Peck impression. You can guarantee that. I'll make sure Miguel feels right at home with that. And just to finish up and just to clarify, of course, Schaefer, your leader or your winner in Pro, Lawrence second place, and Ripper third in the Pro class. Borodai, Macha, and Simmons, your top 3 in silver for race number 2, and it's Roberts, Yo, and Stevenson, your top 3 in the AM class. That's Les Stevenson, by the way, not Will Stevenson. I know some of you think they're related. They are not. But that was your top 3 for all of your classes for the final race. And it's just going to continue. You thought the championship points were close. Now, after this, it's going to be even closer going into Laguna Seca in 1 week's time. And oh, by the way, did I mention it's hard to pass at Laguna Seca?
I feel like you might have, Jesse. It's certainly going to be interesting to see how the M2 cars deal with it. Of course, we've seen across the last 3 races that you need to be basically neck and neck with each other if you want to make the overtake happen. There's not a lot of out-dragging someone on the straight. Of course, the slipstream, it matters, but not enough to help you fully overtake someone. And I think Laguna Seca is going to be the real test of where can you make these overtakes happen, because there's not a lot of opportunity to go side by side Laguna Seca. Of course, you've got the first corner. Other than that, not looking likely. Well, it's into the race 2, and as promised, I'm going to talk about the partners that help to make all of these races possible. We have racedepartment.com. They're your source of sim racing news and mods. AK Informatica, they provide our server solutions, help us to keep our servers running. Driver61.com, they provide driver coaching, and you can get 25% off your driver coaching if you use our discount code. The link is in the description. You can redeem it by going to driver61.com, and coaching helps. If you want to be involved in these races, coaching will be the best way to get you up to speed on that. Fanatec, they are your one-stop shop for the best sim racing equipment. You can use our affiliate link in the description. It won't cost you anything. It helps us out with server costs, and it will get you the best equipment in sim racing. Simracing.gp. Well, if you love the work that we do on Thursdays, if you love watching everyone fight it out in the lobbies and you think, man, I wish my races were like that. I wish I wasn't stuck in public lobbies where we crash all the time. Simracing.gp, they provide quality community-based sim racing and it's completely free. You can just hop in every single day and do a couple of races. Well, Jesse Lee, welcome back to Thursdays. Of course, Miguel will be joining you again next week. I won't be here, so you'll have to cover for me. I'm expecting a lot of high-pitched yelling when things get exciting, and even when things are not necessarily exciting, I need you to be the hype man for me. Of course, you'll be back with Miguel next week. Ryan Mawson will be on the broadcast. Welcome back to Thursday, Jesse, and well, thank you for joining me. It's been absolutely brilliant. As of how this race has gone, I'd say it's been calm for the M2s, but it's still been chaotic. Anything to take home from today, or just excited for next week?
A little bit of both. Seeing them able to race side by side gives me hope for Laguna because they're going to need it. That track is not known for its side by side racing, but in a touring car, I think it's just about doable. And I think that's what you saw tonight. I think it's what you'll see next week as well.
A big thank you to Jesse Lee for joining me today, and a big thank you to Ryan Mawson for sacrificing his race to come and be on the broadcasting tour. And a thank you to all of you in the chat for joining us again today. If you want to catch next week's race and any other races we do, make sure you hit that bell icon to receive notifications. We will see you next week at Laguna Seca, everyone. Goodbye.